my goodness. Little bumpy. Hundredths of a second. That's less than the blink of an eye. It is the final action of 2 weeks of the BMW IBSF Bobsleigh, Skeleton and Parasport World Championships. We are just in the early stages of the four-man race. Hello everybody, welcome back to a sunny afternoon here in St Moritz after an overcast and extraordinarily mild morning that saw our women's race conclude as we get our second heat of the four-man underway. Martin Haven and again joining me Liz Meyer to watch the action. 20 sleds going because one of our athletes crashed in the first heat. Jacob's Calendar and his crew will not go again, so we are down to a field of 20. But that is not going to lessen the challenge of this stunning location. I mean, just look at this place, Liz. What a place to do anything, never mind come racing.
Definitely. It's the birthplace of bobsled and skeleton, and boy, is it a beautiful track to race on. We're super lucky to be able to race on this natural track. It's 1,722 meters long. It is a long track for these athletes, and it's a short start for these four-man bobsledders to be hopping in real quick before they hit this first kink corner and into this long straightaway. We saw lots of athletes struggling, getting bumped off the wall there, and a lot of skidding on this top straightaway of the track. St. Moritz is a very unique track because every single corner has a name, and this is Wall Corner, which is going to set you up for this really tricky two-snake. This is Snake 1 and into Snake 2. Lots of sleds hitting and skidding as they head into Sunny, named because it's the sunniest part of the track. This is into Nash and into Dixon, named after two bobsledders that competed for many years, into Horseshoe, which is one of the biggest corners onto the track, into Telephone, into Shamrock, and into Devil's Dyke. Lots of athletes struggling into Devil's Dyke as they head into Nameless. This is Tree. There's four really quick right-handed corners, Bridge, Leap, and into the final right-handed corner of Gunter Sachs. This is where athletes are hitting their top speed as they head into Martano, as they go uphill a little bit, and into Bartago as they go and cross that finish line.
Well, they've been racing down this valley on the same path through the woods for 125 years and more. The St Moritz Bob Club celebrated its 120th anniversary this year. And there you can see some of the teammates, athletes and friends and family enjoying the sunshine as we get ready for the second heat of our four-man competition. 4 heats over 2 days. They will race again tomorrow lunchtime to decide the gold medal. Well, there are lots of students of the sports here, and this is going to be an absolute classic. Hansi Lochner, 2017 world champion, lies in 3rd place. He is the two-man world champion from last week.
Definitely. He's got some areas to clean up on the track, and he's going to be wanting to make that gap between him and Brad Hall smaller over today and into the next 2 heats tomorrow.
Now, talking about smaller gaps, this is Great Britain's Brad Hall, 3 gold and 2 silver medals in 6 four-man races so far in the World Cup this season. He lies in 2nd place.
And only by 100. There's such a small gap between him and Francesco Friedrich. He needs to find a little bit more on that start and put it all the way down the track.
And Francesco Friedrich, 4 consecutive four-man world championships, starting with that tie with Hansi back in 2017, and 2 Olympic gold medals in four-man as well. And that's never mind what he's done in two-man. He is the benchmark. But as you said, just 100th in front. They outstarted Brad Hall, but Hall drove better. His sled was faster at the bottom, and he's only 100th back. So Brad Hall, in his head, has always had that the German sleds are quicker. Now, they're not if you drive better. Look at the high polish on those runners. Rounded runners, they don't have square edges like an ice skate. You don't use the edge like a ski. It's all about minimizing friction. All you can do when you get into the sled is lose speed, and it's limiting that speed loss that makes you the best driver. It's not who drives the most, it's who drives the least that does the best on these tracks. Now, just to reiterate that Josef Calendar and his crew are fine, but the sled is not. The sled was broken in the crash off Horseshoe, Jacob's Calendar rather, so they're all okay, but the sled cannot go again. Otherwise, being Latvian, they would have been right at the top. So there's the leaderboard. Francesco Friedrich, Brad Hall, Hansi Lochner in the medals right now, but look at Lochner. 500s ahead of Vogt, 600 ahead of Tsipulis. That's up for grabs. And Patrick Baumgartner, great first run from him.
Yeah.
They'll be ahead of the Swiss with Mickey Vogt and Cedric Follador both running well. And Timo Rona only just outside the top 10. Well, lots and lots of action still to come. I want to say hello to the kids at Racefield Primary School who are studying bobsleigh intently. And they have had plenty to study this weekend. And young fans the world over will be watching this one. This is going to be, I think, an absolute one for the ages, a real classic four-man World Championship encounter. So let's get set, ready for our second and deciding heat. The track here in St. Moritz, hand-built every year, tougher than ever. There's a look at the huge grandstand that's been built.
Horseshoe bar.
There's the horseshoe bar. Look, that normally looks quite big, doesn't it, Liz?
Yeah, normally that little hut underneath looks large, but it is dwarfed by the, wow.
Massive new
awesome.
World Championship grandstand, and there's the big viewing deck out front. You get a great view, and then you can see the fans just in the bottom left-hand corner. They're actually above the track, looking down as the sleds come under their toes and onto Horseshoe, one of the world's greatest sporting facilities. There's Francesco Friedrich, Torsten Margis. Well, France loves nothing more than a really tight race. And boy, has he got one on his hands here. He's been struggling with an adductor strain, a groin strain, since Christmas, New Year, and just basically continuing to race, but recoup. And actually, you know, with the crew out starting everybody else, clearly he is as fit as he's going to get and as fit as he's been. So this is not a hobbled Francesco Friedrich. This is Francesco Friedrich with all the attitude of a caged tiger. He is going to be very tough to beat. But Brad Hall just 100th behind after the first heat, and Hansi Lochner right in the mix as well. And for the other athletes, there are so many tight battles going on as well that there is an awful lot at stake in this second heat. The problem with the four-heat race over 2 days, Liz, is you can't make one mistake or you just give places away.
Exactly. Consistency is key, and usually the one that's most consistent will be winning those medals. If you have one run that doesn't go quite great, sometimes that's hard to come back from.
I was just talking to Roman Heinrich in the finish area, and I said, the girls had a great day today, finished in 5th place. I said, that's the target. And he went, oh, come on. that's a little bit steep, but he's looking to have a great last day. There's Greg Cackett, the man who runs TBM, the Brakeman website. Lots and lots of love for the brake athletes, the push athletes in the men and women's competitions, and all the way through the field. So Jacob's Calendar out of the hunt. Our second heat, they go in reverse order of how they stand after the first heat. So Pat Norton will be first off, and then the rookie Maciej Bierek of Czech Republic, followed by Jeff Garbois, Mattia Variola, and so on. Obviously go all the way through the order, and the one who will be out last on track will be our first heat leader, Francesco Friedrich. And again, talking to the coaches and the athletes, they're expecting the warm sunshine. The track will be even slicker than before, very different from how it's been in training. Pat Norton gets the second heat of the World Championships underway for four-man with Kenny Ducati and Pindu, David Cachero and William Ashley in the sled.
A little bit slower on the start for them, and big skids in that top bit of the corner, the track.
Well, this track has been much colder, a little frostier, and a little less slick in training. And that means that the athletes from the first heat to the second are going to find that there's less purchase for the runners. The sled is going to want to skid more. So you have to adapt your driving style to suit the changing racetrack.
Definitely, and because their training times were at different times than what the race was, potentially equipment choices can come into it. And we're talking about runners or kufen, which are on the bottom of the sled. They can choose the radian and the size of them.
This is looking like a nice, smooth run from Pat Norton. The first was a little rattly. This is much tidier. 120.6 kilometers an hour, just under 75 miles an hour. And down through the bottom, 145, 90.1. Big speed. It is quick. This track gets quicker as the day goes on. Same as us. We're a bit slow in the morning.
Yeah, a bit slower start there, but gets only 100 slower on the run time.
And that did look like a tidier run. That probably felt better for the boys in the sled as well. They're a whooping and a hollering.
Yeah, definitely. You can see them getting ready to load in the sled. It is tricky on this track because the pilot does not have visuals onto where they need to load into the sled. Gonna get the guys all tucked in. You need to get the push bars in, which is the number 4 guy's job. It just takes a little bit too much of that first corner, kink 1, and puts them into a bit of a skid.
You can see basically the wall is curved, but there's a little ramp of... Who doesn't love their mum? But there's a little ramp of ice there, and that can play havoc with the sleds. If you just take too much of it, it just throws you into a skid. Almost like it was designed to do so. Matej Bernek of the Czech Republic with David Bureš, Ondřej Radzil, and Antonin Vijas behind him. 2 sleds from the Czech Republic. And young Matty was not expecting to be here, but Dominik Dvořák, the number 1 Czech driver, has had to go home for knee surgery, which was successfully completed a couple of days ago. So the rookie is in. 5:13 starts. That's pretty decent. They had 5:12 in the first heat.
Now this race is going to be for experience for this young pilot, getting in front of the cameras, getting his first 4-heat competition in regards to the World Championships.
And for the crew as well, as John Morgan would say, I can see a lot of shoulders back there. There's a big blue set of shoulders on his brakeman, Ondřej Vijas, and Antonin Vijas, you can really see quite clearly. They'll need to work a little more on getting down out of the airstream.
Definitely, and it's so important for aerodynamics for those brakemen to figure out what the exact position is going to be best for that team.
Second best speed, a whisker slower than Pat Norton.
And this is where Pat had a really good bottom part of the track, so he's going to have to start bringing it back if he wants to maintain his position.
Well, we talked about the tiny margins at the top of the field. There's a tiny margin here as well. Matty was only 500s quicker than Pat Norton, but he has got more than that in hand. At least he did. Now, Pat has robbed him of 100th. Now, that's impressive, because at one stage, halfway down, he was 6,500s up. Comes across the line, 400s up.
And I would imagine that is due to the start, because this Czech team, they pushed a 5:13 and Norton was 5:41. So that's where we're going to see that difference come from. Now, out of Horseshoe here, they take quite a tap into Telephone, which is what has robbed them of that speed, which they had at the top part of the track. Here into Devil's Dyke, they take a big bump. You can see the brakeman getting airlifted.
You can see he's had a little hit on the helmet as well. It's popped the hinge off the visor. So, yeah, it's not a sport for the faint-hearted. Next up from the USA, first of our US sleds, is Jeff Gabois. And Jeff again with a brand new crew behind him. Carsten Vissering, Freddie Harris, and Paul Rabic. Carsten sounds like he should be Dutch. Freddie Harris, he's definitely loose. All right, Freddie? Yeah, right, mate. And Paul Rabic, it could easily be from Croatia, Slovakia, Czech Republic, but no, it's an all-US crew. And their teammate Frank Del Duca was hoping to race in the 4-man. Frankie, we saw at the top of the track before the first run. Can just see Adrian Adams, one of his brakemen there at the top as well, supporting their team. Frankie, unfortunately, suffered a concussion in his crash in the 2-man, so can't race. And, oh, squeeze down slowly, boys. Very, very slowly. Now, that's actually good work from the brakeman. If you don't get in, don't start wriggling on this straight.
Yeah. Because those boys are about 100 kilos. So if they're moving in the back of the sled, that pilot is going to feel it when they're trying to gain control.
Loose
on
load.
Those D-rings.
Exactly right. Yeah, so exhale, make yourself as small as possible, and shrink very slowly down into the sled. Here we go, down to Horseshoe.
A little bit of a messy run we're seeing right now by Jeff.
Yeah, kind of middle-low line as well there through Horseshoe. 400s back at the start. He's bringing it back. Second best speed.
He is in, oh, there you go. He's in the green now. He's in a Swiss sled that they would have rented for this competition.
He had 1200s in hand over Matej Bianek of the Czech Republic. And he may not have that much big skid as he comes over the crest to run 1800, so he does add a little bit to it. And listen, you know,
note on the left there.
All these three drivers are first-timers in the World Championships in a four-man, so they're all learning this track. That some of them, in this case, Jeff, learning a brand new sled as well. Yeah. And so, you know, those tiny variations that we see right at the top of the tree, they're mirrored here as well. We're talking a couple of hundreds here or there, making a difference in positions.
Yeah, and he takes a big bump there into Dixon. And so these three pilots, like you mentioned, this is their first World Championships, the first time in St. Moritz. It's a bit of a different track to be driving for these athletes. Big skid here as he heads into that straightaway before that big left-hand turn, Martineau.
Well, there are the boys. Carsten Vissering, Freddie Harris, Paul Rabich, and their driver, Jeff Gadbois. They go to the leader's box as we wait for Mattia Variola of Italy with Alex Pegnani, Fabio Batti and Jose Obu behind. Former brakeman Mattia Variola. He started 5'11" in the first heat, dropping neatly. Again, he gets a lot of the zero curve.
5:09, a bit better on the start, but boy, taking a lot of sideways movement here at the top of the track.
We can see that the track walls and the floor are not completely 90-degree clean. There's a little fillet at the bottom, and if you run up on that, it really pushes you sideways, and that's induced 2 or 3 skids already.
Yeah, and unfortunately, if you're only hitting with either your front or your back bumpers, it's going to put you into a bit of a skid, and that's exactly what we're seeing.
Yeah, skidding out of Nash and Dixon, named after the 1964 two-man Olympic gold medal winners. Why are British sliders commemorated here? Because they're the only members of the St. Moritz Bobsleigh Club to ever win Olympic gold.
And they were recently inducted to the Hall of Fame at St. Moritz Bobsleigh.
Exactly right.
Wow.
3100s up from Mattia Variola, just about clinging on to his first heat advantage over Jeffrey Gadbois. That was 2500s. It's wild at the bottom, 106.67. So again, the margins are closing up.
Yeah, definitely. There's a little bit of a close gap here. So these athletes, they will all get 4 runs. There's only 20 athletes now in the field.
The famous story of Nash and Dixon's win also includes their greatest rival, Eugenio Monti, who loaned them a bolt from his own sled when one of theirs in the suspension broke, in the axle broke, and they were able to continue in the Olympics and go on and beat him. And he's commemorated in the junior start here, which is used for luge, Monti's bolt, which is you'll see on the side of the track on the run down to Horseshoe. And Eugenio Monti went on to win in Grenoble 1968, his two-man gold medal. So Chunjan Li, Song Ding Song, Ye Jilong and Wu Qinxie are the crew from China. Both Chinese women's crews finished very strongly this afternoon, this morning in their race. They had 2 really good days of competition. And Li, a former brakeman, now trying to drive his crew into a top 15 spot. They were only 500s out of the top 15.
Good start by this Chinese team. A 5:05 is a very strong start.
Yeah, they were 7th quickest away in the first heat with a 5:04, so they are really in there swinging.
They're a relatively young team as well, so they're going to be growing after that Beijing Olympics.
Yanis Minins, their coach, was saying that actually the drivers now, men and the women, are starting to get a kind of sense of their own abilities, and they're starting to say to the coach, no, that doesn't feel right, can I try this? Which is a very non-Chinese mentality in a lot of ways, but actually really works well in this discipline because they're feeling things and the coach is only seeing them. So having that sort of two-way mix of ideas is definitely helping with progress.
And it's so important for the drivers to start feeling the things through the D-rings. So that's what they're holding on. That's how they steer the runners. And as they're feeling them, being able to relay that information to the coaches so they can create a great collaboration.
Wow, that is a big run from Li Chunjan. I thought that big skid was really going to rein in his speed, but in the end, he went from 4,700s up, going into the Gunter Sachs curve to 6,400s up at the line, a 106.07. That's 6/10 quicker than Mattia Variola.
That was a good-looking run by him with still rooms for improvement. We see that tiny tap, but he doesn't panic. He lets it drift a little bit late into horseshoe. Middle-ish line, you can see those runners changing direction as he's steering to get off of horseshoe and heading to telephone. There's that big skid that you mentioned, but it didn't rob him of too much speed.
They are doing nicely on that run. Li Chunjan leads for China. Getting now to Romania's Mihai Tentea, 24-year-old driver with Ciprian Doroci at 2. Mihai Pakianu, who's converted from 2 World Championships in skeleton to start bobsledding, and Georg Iordash, their 19-year-old rookie brakeman at the back.
Matches that start of that first heat, a little bit of a messy load for them and took a lot on that first kink of the corner.
Less skidding here on the second straight as he comes down to wall. 1 pressure, 2 pressures, 3 pressures. Comes out pretty straight.
Yeah. Takes that little bump, but doesn't put him into a skid. Nice out of Snake 2 into Sunny.
11th place in the 2-man race last weekend, and he'll be looking for a top 10 run here.
Tentea is normally a very good pilot. We've seen him drive amazing runs while he was sitting in the sled, while he was injured.
Second best speed so far, but he's losing ground to Li Chunjan of China.
The Chinese team had a great run, so...
Yeah, Pat Norton still got the top speed almost all the way down. Another skid there going into Martineau, named after Hubert de Martineau, the first chairman of the Bobsleigh Club here in San Moritz, and out of Portago. 106.44, so again, losing 35 hundredths there to the Chinese. They stay in the leader's box, enjoying a little bit of San Moritz sunshine as the Romanian train comes into the station. Well, Mihai in second now, 32 hundredths behind Lee. Mattia Variola, 64 hundredths back, so that is no man's land.
Yeah, he took a big bump there into Devil's Stake. Really big skid here in that uphill section. That's where the top speed is taken. It's just robbing his speed.
Disappointing second heat for Mihai Tentea. For the Czech Republic, the second sled is Adam Debes with Michal Dobesh at 2, no relation, making his World Championship debut. Then Jakub Prochaska and Dominik Zaleski on the back, also making his 4-man World Championship debut. So again, Adam Debes, the second of the Czech Republic drivers this season, behind Dominik Dvorak, now assumes the lead role. He's got Dvorak's regular 4-man sled, so the best piece of kit and the best starting crew.
Like you mentioned, he was a brakeman that swapped into that pilot seat. Oh, he's got to get his pilot bar down, but he's having to hold on to the D-rings, trying to decide what he needs to do.
Yeah, he's got to get away from that wall, otherwise it'll drag along and slow you down.
Yeah, which we just saw happen. So when the pilots load into the sled, they have a little trigger, which they push, and that's what brings that pilot bar down. Now, like we saw with this pilot, either he didn't get it while he was loading or missed it just off with the timing, and then they have to figure out when they're going to put it down.
And he was having so many skids out of the first dink, he just didn't have time to do it. Little heavy landing out of horseshoe, rattling the fillings. Oh, and that's really uncomfortable. And there's the speed gone. He'll go into the red now.
He's really going to have to clean it up.
Now he'll be struggling to be ahead of Mihai Tentea of Romania. So I think Adam Debes is going to be around 3 to 4 tenths back at the bottom. All of that speed went away in the forest.
All of it, yeah.
And Li Chunjan picks up another one. He is, in fact, 900 ahead of Tentea.
Yeah.
Again, not the second he wanted.
No, definitely. But it's a 4-heat race. He's going to have tomorrow look his heads down. He knows what he did. He knows the mistakes. And unfortunately, just missing that push bar at the start, I think really affected him the entire way down the track.
Yeah.
Because he's trying to figure out, when do I take my hands off the D-rings to be able to bring in that push bar? Just struggling a little bit. And then in horseshoe, you can see he's starting to bring that sled down. It puts him into a bit of a skid even in the corner, and then takes a big bump into telephone. And another big Yeah.
You're bouncing those 3 100-kilo guys out of their seats. That's a lot of power it takes to do that, and that's power that's no longer driving you forward. So, Lee Chun-Jan leads as we get to Taylor Austin of Canada in 13th place after the first heat with Cyrus Gray, Davidson D'Souza and Shaq Murray-Lawrence.
Little bit slower getaway for this start for this team.
Pretty clean out of the second dink, so keeping that speed on board.
Nice and straight, runners are straight. Oh, big skid.
Crashed out in the 2-man race. So the first, I'm sure, in the 4-man, the first trip was a little bit nervy and tight.
Yeah. Definitely, and you're just trying to get a little bit of confidence back, rebuild your confidence in your driving ability. Ooh.
Again, rattled the feelings of the crew as he hit hard out of Horseshoe, and then it's Telephone, Shamrock, Devil's Dyke in a rush, and you hit them all in one go. It's like a chicane. If you get one bit wrong, you get it all wrong.
Definitely, it's a really unfortunate setup when you do take that tap.
Well,
and it takes all your speed, too.
Yeah, he was building his lead, second best speed. He should still be in the leader's box at the bottom of the run, but not by much. Oh, he held on, 3100s. 3100s out of the forest, held that lead at the bottom. Justin Cripps on the left, Lyndon Rush on the right. 106.19, so he maintains his top 13 place at least.
You can see him in Horseshoe here, which is where he's been struggling these past 2 weeks. Many athletes have been. You can see him really hauling it off. You can see the articulation really great in that sled. The sleds have articulation just in front of the pilot, which and just sets him up so poorly for this little set of corners. You can see the pilot even gets airlifted there as well, too.
Yeah. Hard hit.
Thanks to those guys.
Yeah, yes, it is. It's always thanks to those guys. Without your team, you are nothing. Same with us in the broadcast. Now then, Roman Heinrich, final weekend of racing for him, for Lionel Lefebvre, for Thibaut Damartin and for Jérôme Laparral. 5th World Championships for the driver, 2 as a brakeman for Loïc Kosterg, his predecessor as France 1, and then 3 in his own right as a 4-man and 2-man driver. Had a good weekend in the 2-man last weekend. Great day for the French girls today. They finished 5th in the world, by far their best performance, and he's looking for the same.
Roman's a very experienced pilot, and he's had some great results throughout his career. What a great place to finish a career on in this natural track.
Well, his best result, 15th place in Altenburg 2020. He would love to improve on that, and after one run, he's knocking on the door of the top 10.
Definitely. He's only a 10th away or 1200ths away from being in 9th place. So,
and 7th in the 2-man last week. I mean, that was a great confidence booster. Nice landing as well.
Yeah, really good. This will accelerate him. This is a great-looking run.
He's got great hands and eyes, this man. He really drives a sled well. Good speed, nice all the way down the bottom. Hold it together, just flow on and off the corners. He's reacting really well to the change in conditions since the first. You can see how much sun is on the track now. 90.5 miles an hour across at the bottom, and it is a 1:05.65 for Roman Heinrich. That is a good run, 3/10 quicker than his first.
Definitely, just finding some little shortcuts down the track. That was a nice looking run by him.
Well, 1:05.65 would have left him halfway. Would have left them halfway between 7th and 8th in the first heat, so that's an even better run.
A little bit sloppy on the load here. It's important that the number 4 guy sits down first, then 3, then 2. You can see number 4 guy getting those push bars in. But this was great. He had a really good line at the top part of the track through those straightaways as he heads into wall. This was a little bit of an oops. As he's in that uphill section, he goes into a bit of a skid.
The boys in the replay had to work hard to find that. And congratulations, by the way, to big Thibaut Damartin, recently become a daddy as well. For Switzerland, Timo Röner, son of a famous father. Marcel Röner, I'm sure, is around watching. Haven't spotted him, but he's bound to be here. Greg Jones, Andy Haas, and new boy Roman vaguely on the back of the sled. A little much of the first kink, but a 5:12 getaway.
a bit sloppy. The boys getting down. Number 2 had to look for his seat as he was heading down.
3 Swiss sleds in the field, and there could be 3 in the top 10 overnight. Timo Röner was in the 2-man race, was not expecting to race 4-man, but Seaman Friedli, who returned from injury, then pulled up injured in the second heat of the 2-man, so suddenly they needed someone in the 4-man sled. Hello, Timo, don't go home.
Holding on to 100th in the green, but Heinrich had a great run here. I don't think he's going to keep that lead.
There was 200s between them after the first heat, and I think you're right. There's a little more skidding going on here in Timo Röner's 4-man than in Roman Heinrich's, and the speed isn't quite as good.
Double tap, triple tap. There's hard when that's going uphill.
Yeah, and skidding uphill into Portago as well. 1:05.81. Yes, boys. Allez les Bleus.
Bit of a shrug by the coaches there. There was mistakes, room to clean up for the final day tomorrow.
Yeah, Timo, language Timothy, he's obviously not happy with that run. And the driver, more than anybody, knows where the mistakes are because he feels the sled not doing what he wants.
I mean, when it's a rough run, those boys in the back can feel it too, but this was just skiddy, tappy, more hits than Elvis. It was a little bit messy by this driver. Bringing it off of horseshoe. Yeah, this triple tap in that uphill section. There goes all the speed that he had.
So, a slight disappointment for Timo Röner and the boys. They are in second place. They will be no worse than 12th overnight with 2 more runs to come. And we have our fastest 10 sleds just waiting in the wings to complete day 1 of the BMW IBSF 4-man bobsleigh World Championships. Well, again, as we do so often, Liz Meyer, I love when new athletes come here to St. Moritz because they just walk around slack-jawed, but we all do it. No matter how many times you've been here, it doesn't get any less stunning.
It's magical. I was quoted my first World Cup here. I said it's like sliding on unicorn farts. And what does that mean? It's indescribable. It really is a beautiful place. It's really a phenomenal place should you get the opportunity to visit, let alone slide.
Yeah, absolutely right. Well, Ken Charles, who you know well from the Sliding on Ice website, making his first ever trip here to St. Moritz. His wife has joined him this week as well. They did get stuck up the mountain, up Pitsmare yesterday, and the cable car that got them up there, because the high wind stopped working. So they had to come down on the piste basher. So it's been an entertaining trip, to say the least. But, yeah, for everybody, you know, on the grandstands, in the sunshine, in the forest, this is just a magical place. And when you know that all the greats of history for a century and a quarter have raced down this track, that adds something to it as well. Eugenio Monti, Nash and Dixon, you know, any names you name from history, they've raced the same track you're racing this week, and that's a big deal for the athletes as well. They know the history of the place. It is.
Yeah, it is the birthplace of our sport, so to be able to continue to return, continue to slide on this natural track, it's so much different as an athlete to slide on this track than it is a normal track, and every year, it's just a gift. Plus, the food's great, the views are great, and it's a really nice place.
And the prices are great.
But just ignore that bit, right?
Yeah, everything good costs, and oh boy.
Of course.
St. Moritz is good. Day 1 of BMW IBSF 4-man bobsleigh World Championships are in St. Moritz. Second heat. 10 fastest sleds go in reverse order, and that means that junior world champion Nico Semmler with his young crew, Marvin Paul, Oliver Peschk and Rupert Schenk are in 10th spot after the first of 4 runs.
Not a bad start, ties their first start. Now this team is the 4th of the German sleds. Normally there's only 3 per nation allowed at a World Championships or normal World Cup, but he is the junior world champion, so that gave him a berth into this senior competition.
Came hard there off the end of wall. That's the first mistake we've seen from Nico. He's 25, his crew, Marvin at 2:22, Oliver 22, Rupert 21, and they all look like they're about 15.
The average number is quite low for this team.
Yeah. Yeah, added together, they're younger than most of the coaches.
He's having a pretty decent looking run here. Definitely better than that first heat that he put down.
Yeah, he really is. 1100s up at the start over Roman Heinrich, now out to 2700s. Roman had the best speed at the bottom. We're not getting the speeds off the data box in Nico Semler's sled, but he comes across the line. And that is a 105.37. That is half a second quicker than we just saw. Almost, well, 3/10 than Roman Heinrich. And to put that into perspective, 105.37, that's what Emil Sapoulis did in the first heat. He's 5th.
Maybe just shook those jitters off after the first big race for him.
Well,
so
you know what it's like coming in to do headshots, Liz.
Yeah.
These guys have been doing headshots on Wednesday. They were shaking like a leaf. Honestly, the poor kids did not know what was going on.
I mean, it's just so new. I've got all of the spectators. This is a huge race for them. World Championships, your first time, your first debut, you got the cameras. All of this is really new for this young team.
And you don't get a crowd like this at Junior Worlds or Europe Cup, do you? It's his birthday as well, so yeah, congratulations. Schönes Geburtstag to Nico Semler. He leads with the fastest 9 sleds to go. And Markus Treichel of Austria, slightly disappointing first heat, I thought. That's got to be the one that gets away. Now he needs to be really absolutely on it. 5:02 start, goodness me.
And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing about 200 slower of the starts on these sleds this second heat, but that was another strong start by that team.
Best velocity from Sascha Stepan, Markus Sammer and Christian Huber behind Markus Treichel. Now, Hannes Wallner, who has been a bit of a four-man sled building legend, has teamed up with Wolfgang Stamfer, the Austrian coach, to continue their sled building program. Wolfie's always been a bit of a sled whisperer as well. The Austrian sleds have always been quick, so has Hannes Wallner, and that is good news for the Austrian program.
Yeah, Stamfer's been building sleds, Wallner's been building sleds. They're from this Tyrol area, so it's great to see them working together to try and elevate this Austrian program.
3rd best speed, still with an advantage over Nico Semler. 4th best speed, is it going to be enough at the line? It's going to be close. Hundredths of a second, 2 hundredths of a second. Well, he comes down 300ths slower than Nico Semler on that run. He was 500ths faster in the first. The net difference is that he stays 200ths ahead of the Junior World Champion overnight and guaranteed at least a top 10 as he goes to bed.
Big flop and skid tap as he heads into Snake 1. Not too many athletes have been struggling in that area, so just a bit of an overdriving situation. As he heads into Portago, just a bit of a skid in that uphill section too.
Well, Marcus seems to have really responded to the extra speed at the start that he's getting from the crew, and that's always good news. Chris Woolley at the front with the sled for the Swiss, Cedric Follador, Nicola Mariani, Dominic Hufschmidt and Luca Roli. Now, Cedric was always expecting to do the 4-man race, did not get to start in the 2-man. A little bit of a shame, actually, that Simon Friedli was healthy enough to start. Otherwise, Follador would have had another weekend of sliding here. But with the training he's got and a couple of extra days at Christmas and New Year, can he break into the top 6?
Get down! It's important those brakemen get down and settled super quickly. We can see them even moving a little bit behind the pilot, and that's 100, 200 kilos between two of them. They're moving. Pilot's feeling it.
It's 1100s deficit now to Markus Treichel. He had a whopping 700s advantage from the first heat, and Treichel has now got a 1300s advantage in the pocket as Follador continues to lose time. Down to Horseshoe, he's got to be clean here and build speed through the forest.
Nice exit there out of Horseshoe. This deficit we're going to see is from that start because there's 800s-ish between the two from that start on one heat.
Best speed up to here was the French sled of Roman Heinrich. Now it's quicker for Follador.
It's going to be close here at the finish.
It is going to be close, isn't it? He's bringing it right back, but not quite close enough. 105.55, so he slips a spot.
2 spots.
2 spots, I beg your pardon, yes.
Yeah.
Nico Semler was only 200s behind Marcus Treichel. 800s back now, Cedric Follador in third. And Roman Heinrich, 3600s back. He's 14th ahead of 1400s ahead of Timo Rona. And Rona 1100s ahead of Taylor Austin. With 2 heats to go, a lot of changes could still happen.
See that pilot hopping in, he quickly pushes that trigger and hands onto the D-ring. It's important that the number 4 guy sits down first, which in this case he doesn't, which is why I think they struggled a little bit.
I think that happened in the first heat as well with Follador's crew, so Lucaroli needs to run a step less, get in, get that power stride in earlier, get settled.
Yeah.
Because you sit jammed in like sardines. Basically, you're at 4, the guy at 3 is sitting between your legs, the guy at 2 is sitting between his, and the guy at 2's legs go around the driver. Next up, Christoph Hafer of Germany with Michael Salzer, Matthias Sommer, and Tobias Schneider in his crew. This man, our 4-man Olympic bronze medalist in 2022. Former junior world champion as well. His world championship debut was in Koenigsegg in 2017 when he was the junior world champion. This is his second 4-man world championship start. 5:05 getaway.
200 slower than that first heat, which is what we're seeing. It's standard, it appears, between the pushers this second heat. Clean up top. He's a really good pilot. Like you mentioned, an Olympic medalist. He knows how to drive a sled well.
Took kind of a lot of the end of wall there. Little skiddy out of Sunny down into Nash and Dixon. And the transition there is not clean either. So he's skating down towards Horseshoe.
Just appears just a little bit out of control here, which can be super fast.
Well, you know the rule, don't you, Liz? Let it fly. Argue with the sled as little as possible. Just guide it in the right direction. He's bringing the speed back. Now second quickest.
Gotta drive it like you stole it, so you gotta be sometimes a little bit loose.
Yeah, that's the Nico Peter way. Hit everything inside and still be quick. 146 down at the bottom, 90.7 miles an hour, as fast as Cedric Follador, and Hafer has the lead over Marcus Treichel's crew.
Ed Leopold on the left there. Big German crowds here at the bottom of the track.
105.35, the fastest trip down so far. 105.37 of Nico Semler, second quickest. Marcus Treichel, 105.40, third fastest in this heat so far. There's a lot of Hafer to thread in.
Yes, definitely. And interestingly enough, he starts the run with his visor up, and as he loads in, he brings his hands down and shuts his visor. Just a fun little...
Yeah, you often see that, because you can't get your elbows in, so you have to cross over in front of your face. Lots of drivers use that as the opportunity to snap the visor down.
Exactly, and then when they're pushing, it's not heating the visor up, so there's no fog issues as well.
Well, there is Marcus Treichel offering his congratulations just in the corner of your shot. Next up, perhaps the biggest surprise, I think, of the first heat, Patrick Baumgartner of Italy, 6th place run. Now, don't let that get to yourself. Have another really storming run here. Good start with he and Eric Fantazzini, Robert Messier and Lorenzo Bellotti. Get in, get down, 5:06. Pretty clean run through the first dink.
And 100th better than that first push. It really shows that they're coming into their own. The starts used to not be their strength, but hey, they're coming into it.
Well, they're having a really good run here. Oh, a little tap of out of wall. And that has taken away their advantage. The starting advantage for Christoph Hafer was only 100th, but he drove the top section a little faster, if not tidier.
Yeah, a bit of a flop there off a horseshoe.
Yeah, Baumgartner rattling the walls.
He's going to be lacking potentially a little bit in speed from those little mistakes.
Well, right now in 4th place is Cedric Follador, 2700s back, and that at the moment would represent top 10, and only the 7th best speed from Baumgartner. He's going to be second at the line. Is he ahead of Treichel? No. Tied with Nico Semler. Nevertheless, he is in equal 3rd place with 5 to go. I think if you'd offered the coaches a top 8 day one, they would have ripped your arm off and said thank you at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. And there's room for improvement. Of course, the pilot's going to be disappointed because he did make those mistakes. He was gifted a great start by his brakeman. Here, coming off of Horseshoe, potentially he brought it down a little bit too soon, but couldn't, and there was extra pressure left, and that's where we're getting that flop. And that's a lot of ice being cut by those runners. You can see the ice coming up behind the sled, and it puts him into a skid to top it off.
Patrick Baumgartner slips a couple. Christoph Hafer leads from Marcus Treichel, the fastest 5 to go. Now, again, maybe a bit of a surprise, but maybe not, given his form this season. Young Emil Tsipulus of Latvia, with Davis Springs, Mats Miklas and Edgars Nemeth giving him a huge start. This young man has really been burning up the World Cup circuit. He's having a great four-man season, and his first run was a doozy, 4:96.
Wow, that ties Wood Friedrich push. So he just tied the start record. That was a great push. We've seen that all season by Tsipulus. Him and his team are strong push athletes, and he's starting to get a little bit more feeling for the sled in the drive.
3 races this season, 14th in Winterberg and then 6th and 7th in Altenburg, the last races before the World Championship. So he's got that top 6 form run. This again is looking very nice. He is feeling the love for this St. Moritz track, isn't he?
Is he ever? That's some great lines into Devil's Dyke. He's having a good run where lots of people have been struggling. Whoop, bit of a bump on the wall there. Let's see, little skid.
Two previous World Championship appearances in 2-man only, 21st in Altenburg,
track record!
6 in St. Moritz, and that is a great day in the 4-man. 1:05.04, fastest man down so far. Okay, boys, I'm here. Hello, hello. That's him flashing the headlights in the rearview mirror of the top 4.
Man, start record ties it and then does the track record in the second heat. Well done. This was a very nice looking run. Really nice elongated straightaway as he heads into telephone. So integral. Oh, you can see the big boys in the back getting pushed around. Getting picky. This is a little bit of a skid in that uphill section, but really great.
Well, Emil Tsipulus was 100th out of 4th, 600th out of 3rd. Hello, boys.
Yeah.
Talk about pressure now. Mickey Vogt, Silvio Weber, Cyril Bieri, and Sandro Mikkel. This is the #1 Swiss team. They started 5:07. They need to get into the 490s to stay level with the current leader. Oh, 5:06, so immediately he sits down. Mickey is behind.
And puts himself in a bit of a skid and a tap in that first bit of the straightaway.
Again, in the first heat, it took a while to build the speed. He was losing ground to some of the front runners early in the run, and he is again.
Yeah, which is due to that start. I mean, that was a huge start by Tsipulus, so he's really got to have a perfect run from here on out to make that gap go away.
Again, Vogt is bringing the sled, the nose down a little early. The tail is hanging up on the corners. You can't do that in Horseshoe. That's cleanish.
No.
Cool. This is going very much in the wrong direction.
Nah, he is the hometown hero, but these are some big mistakes that we're seeing by this pilot.
He was only 500ths out of the medals in the first heat. This is nervous times for Mickey Vogt. He's got to get it back. He's not bringing it back. Only the 6th best speed and a skid. He'll tumble down the order behind Christoph Hafer. Tsipulus could be in the medals overnight. He really could be in the medals overnight.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that's going to do to his head.
I guess we'll see. It's a good practice, if anything else, to get ready for these 2 race days. The 4 heat races, a different setup for most of these athletes.
Yeah. Mickey Vogt, disappointing second run, drops 2 spots, and right from the start, it was just a bit skiddy and nervy.
Yeah, it could be just added pressure being hometown World Cup or World Championships, and just ended up off his line from the top of the track and just got exaggerated the whole way down. Lots of tapping, lots of skidding, over driving. It's just really hard to bring it back.
All right, so the pressure is real. Very, very real. Emma Sapoulis of Latvia leads. Hansi Lochner is in third place, our new two-man world champion. 600s ahead of Sapoulis only, and 2300s off the lead. Eric Bruckert, Georg Fleischhauer joining the four-man crew, and Joshua Tascher, late addition to the back in the place of the injured Christian Rust. They still had a huge start, and they have another huge start, 497.
Great start by that team. I mean, Lochner's really had a great season.
Yeah. Best velocity so far. He has had a great season. Third in the World Cup standings. He's not yet had a win in the four-man, though.
Fleischhauer's been a really good addition to this team. Really brought a lot of extra strength to the start. I mean, Lochner's already a very strong pilot, but just a little bit extra.
Hansi has not lost a race with Georg Fleischhauer in the back of the two-man. Does that work for the four-man as well? We'll have to wait and see, but he's behind at only fifth best speed. He was very skiddy at the top, Liz, and he's still skidding.
And we're seeing the effects of that, especially that's where we're missing that speed, is from those mistakes at the top of the track.
And he's still making mistakes. Hits going into the Gunter Sachs curve. He's straight down to the bottom, but the speed is not there. He is going to be second at the line, but Sapoulis will be in the medals overnight.
Wow! Oops. Yeah. Yeah. When Sapoulis lays down a run like he did, Lochner can't be making those kinds of mistakes. He knows that. He's an experienced pilot. Going to be kicking himself a little bit. Still smiling, I'm sure. As is standard by Lochner. Here he is into horseshoe. You can just see he's trying to take it off and just puts him a little bit of a flop, a little bit of a tap. It sets it up really poorly for those next corners. And then coming off here, he ends up tapping on the left just before Gunter Sachs, which is just unfortunate.
Well, the four-man's kind of been his favoured weapon of choice, but his big target was to beat France. To beat Francesco Friedrich. He did that in the two-man, which is home turf for Francesco. So almost whatever happens here, Hansi has done what he wanted most. But for Brad Hall, our World Cup points leader, Aaron Gulliver, Taylor Lawrence, Greg Cackett, they could make history this weekend. 496, another big start from the boys.
That was a great start. They took 300s off that first one. They wanted to tie Franz. Let's see what he does in the second heat, too.
So we've had three sleds start 496. Brad Hall was 100th off the lead, but comes a long way late off Wall and then Trouble in Snake.
It's been really interesting to watch this team this season. They got new coaching with Graham Richardson, and that seems to really have accelerated Brad, give him some confidence.
They're just all gelling so well. The starting crew are great. They're just hitting it out of the park. They're doing exactly what the German teams do. He's got the best speed in the forest, Brad Hall. It's not for him about Sapoulis. It is about beating the GOAT. It is about Friedrich. For everyone, it's about Friedrich. He was 100th behind in the first heat. This may not be as tidy. He's still going to have the lead. Let's see what Friedrich has got in the second. Oh, what a 494. Fastest down the mountain.
There's Graham Richardson. He's the new coach that's been added to this team. And wow, there were some mistakes there, but the athletes behind him just gave him a little bit more oomph on that start.
That's what Steve Holcomb always used to say. If I win, it's because these guys give me the start that allows me to make mistakes, and we all make mistakes.
Exactly. So the faster your brakemen are pushing you, the little bit more wiggle room you have down the track for some mistakes. And this was not a perfect run by Brad. He definitely has some room to clean up.
Yep.
Okay entrance into telephone. They're in it. They're in the fight.
They are in the fight. That's all they want. All they want is to go toe-to-toe, head-to-head with the greatest bobsledder of all time, Francesco Friedrich, with Torsten Margis, Candy Bauer and Alex Schuller. This is the A-team, no question about it. And Friedrich, you can hear the horn going. He is as fit now as he's ever been, I think. Oh, new start record. I knew it was going to come. Torsten would have said we need a 95. It's a 95.
They found that 100 somewhere in there.
Now, France knows he's in a race here. Brad is 100th behind, and that means that it is absolutely imperative that he keeps it clean, but it's hard to get a four-man down here clean. There's already mistakes coming in from Friedrich.
Definitely, but we also saw a lot of mistakes by Brad as he headed down the track, too.
Skid out of Dixon, down to Horseshoe. Medium-low line for Francesco as well. They're not trusting there's much grip in this track. Best speed in the forest. Oh, here we go. This is classic Francesco Friedrich. When you put him under pressure, he responds, but a big mistake into the Gunter Sachs curve. He was 1600s up. What's he got at the line? He should have the lead. He's got the best speed. Overnight, he leads by 2 tenths and another new track record.
Oh, that was good, boy. That was good.
That was a classic Friedrich run. A few scrappy moments, but boy, oh boy, when he needed it, he found nearly 2 tenths over Brad Hall.
But Friedrich did have a messy first heat, so he cleaned up a couple bits and really got that extra 100th out of his boys on the start.
Well, we know he makes mistakes. He doesn't often make them twice. There you go. There is the respect, the comradeship between these guys. It's about you, the track, and the stopwatch. Nothing your rivals do can mess up your race unless you let it. And Francesco Friedrich did not let it. A brand new start record and a brand new track record. He is our overnight leader, and that only makes life more entertaining. It wasn't perfect. Nobody is going to be perfect down here this weekend. It is the toughest San Moritz in years. But Friedrich leads by 2 tenths. Brad Hall in the silver medal position overnight, and Emil Sepoulis of Latvia could be pulling a big spice. Look how excited, how amped up is Torsten Margis. Alex Schuller on the left, Candy Bauer second left, and Francesco Friedrich on the right of your shot are our leaders. Hall, Sepoulis, Lochner, half a vote. There's too much going on to get it all into one little soundbite. Look at Treichel, Baumgartner, Semler. 3 sleds, 200s, 2 heats to go. Follodor's not out of that battle either. It's going to be phenomenal.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. We're going to see some good racing by these boys. Today was great. Emil is sitting in third. What a great result for the Latvian to head into overnight.
That is going to be absolutely nuts. The crowd are going to go mental. Sunday afternoon, do not miss it. And there are battles all the way down the order. Pat Norton, Matty Bernek, separated by just 400s. So the first couple of sleds that go off, or the last couple of sleds that go off in Heat 3, will also be battling somebody for a position the moment they leave the block. It is going to be absolutely high-octane entertainment. We will be back at 1200 GMT and 700 Eastern. Join Liz Meyer, the IBSF TV crew, me, Martin Haven. Thank you for being with us today. We will see you tomorrow for the final 2 heats of the World Championships to see who comes out as the 4-man world champ. Don't put your money on anybody. Join us tomorrow. Until then, have a good evening. Bye for now.
Ich bedanke mich bei allen Helfern bei der Bahnmannschaft. Terminato.